What's up, party people? It's Drewer inside of Cuarto Siete Studio, aka Room 7. And today we're going to continue on where we left off from last week's video. I was talking about kick and bass last week. This week we're going to hop into the same track and we're going to talk about the drum bus today. All right. I'm going to break down what's going on the drum bus itself, and then what's happening on each individual element inside the drum bus. All right. So real quick, just so you guys can take a listen to the track real quick, we'll play a quick little snippet of what's going on and then hop in. All right, let's do it. All right, sweet. You guys get the gist of it right there, right? I really like this track. I totally think it has a cool vibe, and his drums are pretty cool. Um, so as you can see here, a lot of it's labeled MPC, MPC, MPC. So a lot of the drum sounds came off the MPC, right? I sampled them from my drum machine into the MPC just to get that MPC crunch and punch that it has, right? Real nice sound that comes out of this machine. So created a sequence, a pattern, recorded that into Ableton, and then from there I can break down what's happening, or I can edit it to my taste, right? Like you see here on this breakdown. Like you see on that breakdown, I can do cool stuff like this little clap bridge right here, or this clap breakdown or build up, I should say. Right? So let's hop into it, right? I'm gonna break down each element, what's going on each element, and then we're gonna hop onto the drum bus and talk about what's happening on the drum bus, okay? So we'll start with our hi-hats, right? Here's what the drums sound like by themselves. All right, cool. So we have this hi-hat pattern. And as you can see here, I start out with the utility plugin like I usually do on everything. Then I have this overdrive plugin here, pushing about 27% on there. Turn the tone up a little bit, and the drive's at 50%. And then I'm using the filter to get a little bit more exact on what part of the sound I want getting processed. So let's listen to it without the overdrive. Now with the overdrive. Cool. So you can hear there that it's adding some saturation, some distortion, and it's thickening up the hats, right? Making them sound a little bit more full, and definitely adding some harmonics to it too. So let's once again. Cool, right? I like the way that sounds. It makes it sound kind of almost more like a real drum, like a real hi-hat, right, would sound. So I like that vibe. Of course, we got the BX console on here that I have on every channel. So if we're looking here, I'm doing some roll-off at 150, bringing down the highs at 10,000 kilohertz. And let's see what else we got going here. All right, we got a shelf on the top end, so right about 5K. I'm pushing about 3 dB, and let's hear what that sounds like with and without. So without. Now with. So I'm ever so slightly just darkening up the sound, but then bringing back the highs, right? So I'm darkening up the sound with the roll off. Sometimes I don't like how much fizzy or like it just sounds too clean, I guess. Maybe with all those highs in it. So I like to roll it off a little bit, and then I'll boost again after to add a little bit more high end back. Um, I know it sounds counterintuitive, but I just like the way that sounds a little bit better than having a super bright hi hat. I feel like it could fatigue your ears a little bit. It sounds better in the mix, I think. So that's what's going on there. And then I'm just bringing down the volume about 2 dB to compensate for any gain that I added with this bump here, right? And then lastly, I just have some roll off again just to make sure 156 there. And we'll put this right around the same there. Cool. So those are hi-hats in context. Bam, there it is. You can hear the difference right there. Cool. All right, we'll move on to the clap. So pretty fun, cool sounding clap here. Here's what it sounds like without any processing on it. And then with processing. Cool. So what's going on here? All right. So first, our utility plugin, like usual. Then I have this spring reverb by Arturia. I really love this spring reverb. I use it like all over my productions. I just really like the sound of spring reverbs. I got really into dub, and this is just like my favorite reverb. It just sounds dope, and then it sounds really good on drums. So you can see here, I'm hitting this advanced button on it. Adding some pre-delay. I turned the EQ on, so I'm bringing down a roll. I'm rolling off at 5,700 hertz, and then I leave this kind of stock. It's always set at 2,000 or 283 hertz, right? From there, bringing up the input ever so slightly, taking the decay all the way down, and then mono with, and then I'm getting more of the preamp sound than I am the reverb, and that's adding some extra saturation to it too. So here's without it. And that's with it, right? So adding a lot of vibe. Cool. And I kept it like that. Sometimes after some reverbs, it's cool to add like a gate to shorten the sound of the reverb, but I haven't been doing that as much lately. That's kind of like a 90s, 80s kind of technique to do. But with this sound, I think the reverb sounds already kind of short, so I like it as is. After that, we're adding a little bit more distortion. We got this overdrive plugin once again, and we're just adding 19%. And then I pulled in the filter just slightly so it's not distorting any of the side information here, or I mean the very top information, and the very bottom information is just getting the mids where that clap lives, right? So here's without it. And with it, it just brightens it up. The sound makes it a little thicker, and it pokes out a little bit more. All right, and then we got our BX console here, our SSL plugin, and let's see what's going on here. So really, we just got some dynamics going on. We got the compressor acting up, is in use here. So we got the 4:1 ratio, release all the way down to 1 second to really have a fast, to really make the envelope of the sound very fast, right? I just want to capture the peak of it, and then it goes away, and then it stops compressing. And then turned up the threshold or down the threshold about -10 dB. And you can see the gate is working as well, and have the release set same timing as the compressor, and that threshold turned down so it captures it, right? Cool, and then we're just turning it down by a couple dB as well. And then, because with all that added, the sound is pretty damn loud. So I added this clipper because when all these sounds are playing together, that clap actually pokes out a lot, and there's not it takes up a lot of headroom with that sound. It's like peaking super high, so I want to use this clipper to kind of control that and give myself some more headroom, and it adds a little bit of saturation here, right? I'm using this Ableton saturator to do the clipping. You can change the setting here to digital clip. You have all kinds of different ones, but this digital clip one right here, and then this macro is mapped to the drive and to the output, right? So while the drive, we push the drive, the output turns down, so our volume stays the same, right? And then that's what's going on with this guy. So again, just controlling those peaks, a little bit more saturation again, and then the EQ at the end is just rolling off anything that's added with any distortion, right? So there was no roll off on the SSL channel, so just to make sure there's no lows coming through, we make space on all our elements so our kick and bass can come through, and any other elements that live below that can have space in the mix, right? So just a little bit of roll off on the EQ, about 200 hertz. If you see there is some information down there, and I just want to get rid of that so there's not too much mud going on there. That's when people like to say mud or your mix is muddy, is because there's a lot of elements building up on the bottom end right there. Cool. And then the last utility plugin, just in case I wanted to turn it down some more, but I liked it like that. So here's let's play this in context real quick. All right, so we're gonna play without it. So pretty basic sound, and then with it. Cool. So you can hear there, adding a lot of vibe. Makes the sound a little bit more old school too, especially with a lot of this saturation that's going on. I like that old school sound, like it's going through preamps and doing all kinds of crazy stuff, right? So that's adding that character to it. Cool. We're gonna skip over to the congas here. These congas. Looks like it was a bounce of some congas. I just had some samples. I put them in a drum rack, and then I made a drum loop with that drum rack, and then I bounced it to audio so I can do stuff like this. Right? So what does that sound like in context of the track? Let's hear it. A little hard to hear there, but let's hear. So yeah, doing fun stuff with the congas, and if you guys don't do this, bounce your MIDI files into audio, and then mess with that audio file and edit it to have different start points. This is a real fun technique that I like to use. I can reverse sounds like this, so I'll reverse it. And that just adds a cool flavor to your tracks, right? So these congas here, I also put some spring reverb on there. You can hear that little slap back like delay type thing going on with it, and then a little bit of distortion. And then as you see, since I bounced it with all those effects on, and then at the end here, I'm just adding EQ to clean up the sound a little bit. And I think I put an instance of a roar on there too. It would have been useful to have that to show you guys, but we can do that later, and I'll show you guys a roar plugin in another video. But definitely process those congas, bounce them in place, and then now I'm just cleaning it up with a little bit of EQ, taking out some of those mids so the clap can come through a little bit more, and then I'm just turning it down on the fader here just so it sits nice in the mix, right? Congas, I kind of like to bring them a little bit down so they're not like super bright in your face all the time. All right, so now we got a sample here from AJ Hall, super dope drummer that releases sample packs and whatnot. Not your typical type of thing that you would probably see a house music producer using, but these are like real drums from a real drummer and just freaking knocking drums, man. They're dope. I like that fool. That fool's tight. So, this is pretty simple. We got this one shot sound. Right? It's got some delay on it. I'm EQing it, but here's the sound without. Right? And I'm just using this as just a little fill, just to have a little fill every 4 bars. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the fill comes in, and then on the breakdown here too. So you can hear. So it's just adding. And then the delay we're using is the delay tape 201, which is obviously the Space Echo from Roland, but the Arteria version. And then you can see my settings here. To take full advantage of this plugin, turn this preamp on, and then you get a lot of vibe coming out of the unit, right? So turn it up 6 dB. Make sure you're getting a little peak level going on, and that adds some saturation that this hardware unit's known for, right? I also have that unit in pedal form by Boss Space Echo, the RE202, which is another emulation guitar pedal. But I run a lot of my sounds, whether it's the Hydrasynth, whether it's drums, whatever. I run it through a lot of my sounds as I'm recording in through the desk and using that as a delay, and that's real fun too. Cool. So that's that, and then obviously just a little bit of EQ, and then we can hear. Cool. And that delay is also, let's see, we're not doing nothing with the EQ, nothing, no LFO things going on. It's not on ping pong, it's on left, right. Turned up the width a little bit, bass treble up, and then it's on ever so slightly. The intensity's turned up a little bit. And that's kind of all that's going on there. Cool. So very simple. Some sounds are pretty simple. They don't got to be too complicated, right? We can move on. Oh, where'd I go? We can move on here, right? So we're gonna move on to the ride cymbal here. Cool, and this ride cymbal is also coming from the MPC, but I sampled the 909, right, or the RD9. And here's what it is without any processing. Sounds cool. But a little bit of overdrive to match the other elements in the drum bus. So you can see the overdrive there, just a little bit at 9%, and then we got the BX console. I'm turning up a little bit at 2 kilohertz, 2000 kilohertz, 2.1. And then I'm turning up a little bit at 6.8 kilohertz. A little bit of roll off again on the top, roll off on the bottom as well. And that's all that's going on with this. The release is on too, or the gate, excuse me. So like that the what I track kind of ends there and starts over again. But I kind of like that sound. This sounds cool. It sounds old school, you know. Sounds like it's coming off a sampler. And then I got this EQ here, just adding a little bit of more high end at the end here. Cool. So that's our ride cymbal in context. Cool. And then the last things in this drum bus, right, is going to be these crashes. So I have this crash here. And a cool trick I like to do with my crashes, this is again coming from the 909. So I think this one, I already had a sample of my that I created. And so I just tossed it in here. I like to add my crashes kind of at the end because like I'll usually jam something out like using this APC and hidden loops and stuff to get like a kind of a arrangement down, and then on the back end I'll add like crashes and whatnot just because it's easier that way. But yeah, so here's a crash. Cool little trick that I like to see, that I like to use, that I learned watching a video. I don't know where I got it from. I don't know. It was like some guy explaining like some 90s house techniques, and I forget exactly who it is, but if I remember, I'll let you guys know. Um, he just liked to add this little delay, right? I'm using it on the, what is that, two? I don't even know what kind of note. That's 16th notes, and then the feedback up a little bit, mode fade, and then the dry wet at 42. So you can hear it kind of da 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 echoes out like that, which I think is a fun sound, very 90s sounding sound as well. And then just some roll off at 200 hertz, right? So let me turn that off. You can see all that information it has below it. Once again, roll off those lows on the elements that don't need lows. You're gonna save yourself a lot of headroom, and your kick drum's gonna come through a lot better, right? Now the fun part is we can make some risers with our crashes, right? So we have this element here, and I can play both of them together. Nice. So that's a super fun sound right there. Now I got this delay set to 4, so that's going to be like quarter notes. And then the feedback up, dry wet up a little bit more, fade. I did mess with the little filter a little bit just to filter out some, I don't want as the lows kind of getting affected. And then I got this phaser going, or flanger going right here, right? So the flanger's on, rate 1, 100% amount, feedback up, dry wet, 100% up. And then I like turning this warmth knob up, and it kind of adds a little bit of vibe. It sounds more like it's coming from like a hardware unit when you turn that up, right? And again, rolling off the lows. So let's hear this reversed crash. Sounds cool too, right? But you want to add some flavor? You want to add that flavor right here. Yeah. And that makes the sound fun. It's like twirling around in your head. Adds a little bit of a effect. You know what I mean? If you're on the dance floor and you hear that swirling around like that, and you know people are having a good time, that I like to do things that are gonna have that effect, if you know what I mean. If you know, you know. So yeah, that's that sound right there. Here's the sound without the other part. Cool. And if you don't know how to reverse a crash, real quick, I'm gonna copy this over. You just click it, literally hit R, and it reverses it. Easy as that. Create another channel, put it on that channel, affect it a little differently, and now you got a cool little riser, right? So fun little effect that you could do there. And there's some other drum techniques that I could show you guys later that I like to do to make risers with like existing drum effects or drum sounds or drum hits, and then with adding effects and then bouncing it and stuff. Um, we can explore that later. Maybe that's another video for another time, right? All right, on the drum bus itself, right? We're doing a little bit of roll off here. We're rolling off any more lows that were in the mix. So let's hear that. Which is not much. This is just for assurance, right? And then any side information that was going on, I also rolled off too. You can turn this plugin into mid side mode and roll off any side information that you have as well. Another tip that I recently learned, right? And then from there, we got this tape plugin with some drive, the tone knobs turned all the way up. And this is just adding some saturation to the drums. Adding some saturation and some glue to the whole drum bus, right? So instead of using a compressor to kind of to compress the signal together to kind of glue things together, I'm using the tape plugin. This is another technique that I've seen producers using. So instead of what do you call it, compression, they're using like tape saturation, which is kind of like compressing it and putting it together and making it sound cohesive. So this is the tape Mellow 5 from Arteria. I like this one. You turn the drive up, it sounds pretty good. And you can use different settings on here, but I like turning up that drive on the drums and giving them that old school feel, right? So that's that plugin. Cool. And then we got this mag EQ working here. So this is just adding ever so slightly 2.5K at 0.5 boost, 650 at 0.5 boost, and then we're adding about 4 dBs at the 20 hertz. And this air band is like a really like it's not a steep curve, it's a very light curve, so it's like a what do you call it, a shelf, and it's just like, oh, it just really adds a really nice highs to your sound. So let's hear. So you can hear it there. It's brightening up the drum bus a little bit, brightening up those cymbals. We're doing a lot of roll off inside the individual elements, um, and then we want to kind of add it back a little bit so it can come out and come to life a little bit more, right? Especially after using tape plugins, you kind of want it rolls off some of those highs, and then you want to add some of it back to give it some air, hence the air band on the Mag EQ, right? And just making it sound a little bit more balanced, a little bit more polished, right? So that's that. And at the very end, we got our BSA clipper that I'm using a lot, right? So you can see there, I'm pulling it down to -6 dB. I'm not pushing into it at all. I just wanted to tame the peaks of the whole drum bus itself. And sometimes you can see I used a clipper on the clap, and really just a clap. I think the congas might be getting clipped too, but I bounced that as well. So yeah, this is just a tame to make sure that the peaks are getting controlled on the drum bus, and again giving myself headroom so I can really turn this bad boy up on the master bus. Cool. All right, guys, now that's it, right? So that's the drum bus, and once again, here it is with the kick and bass that we've walked through. Cool. It's grooving, it's moving. Definitely dance floor ready, right? So that's this week's episode on me walking through this track that I just put out, Seventh Dungeon. This track is called Sunday Dub. If you like what you're hearing, go check it out. It's on Bandcamp, on SoundCloud, at Cuarto Siete Records and Cuarto Siete Radio on SoundCloud. Cuarto Siete Records on Bandcamp, all right? And if you guys got any questions, leave a comment. I'd love to start a chat, see what you guys are doing on your guys' drum bus. And if you guys like what you see, give me a like, give me a follow, and we'll hang out some more inside the studio. All right? It's Drewer. I'm out. Peace.